Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing something that is very real to me. I'm going to be talking about the things I wish I knew before I came into the UK. Grab a cup of tea and let's sit down and get into today's episode together. Welcome to Life with Aminaho. This is a channel where we share real talk, free advice, and tips on how to live and thrive in the UK. Now, the very first thing I wish I knew for coming to the UK is that visa rules can be more complicated than you think. Why do I say that? Now, when I was applying for my second visa, I came to the UK on a dependent visa. When I wanted to apply for a skilled worker visa, when I got a job that could sponsor me, like 6-7 months into my stay in the UK, I even googled what kind of visa is right for me, because different visas have different rules and different complications, so to speak. So for example, if you're on a student visa, you can only work for 20 extra hours. If you're on a skilled worker visa, you can study and work, right? But you cannot work after your main job for more than 20 hours. Now, there is a story going on right now about a lady who got deported because she was working in, I think she was sponsored as a nurse and was working in the nail salon and was working, I can't remember the number of hours, and she got her visa revoked and deported from the UK. Now, part of what some people don't know is, for example, when you come into the UK, especially if you come from a part of the world where entrepreneurship is celebrated, we are basically all entrepreneurs because we're trying to, make sure that we're financially okay, right? And we're trying to build a better life for ourselves and our family. You might have some skills that you come into the country with. So for some people, they come in, they have skills as hairdressers, artists, artisans, plumbers, things like that. So when you come in and you're studying, part of what you don't know, or some people don't know, is that being an entrepreneur, starting your own business, is frowned upon. You will get your visa revoked if you do that. And if you're on a skilled worker visa as well, you can study, right? But you cannot become an entrepreneur. You can't own your own business. So even as simple as monetizing a YouTube channel, for example, is classified as a business. So if you have your visa, if you're on a skilled worker visa, this is something that you have to look at. The dependent visa allows you more restriction, gives you more free way to do some things than the skilled worker visa. As prestigious as some visas might sound, they might not be the right visa for you. So if, for example, you have the opportunity to be on a global talent visa, that's absolutely one of the best visas that I believe you can be on in the UK, because it gives you, you don't need sponsorship, you're self-sponsored. If you're traveling for work, the 180-day rule a year, not spending more than 180 days outside the UK in a year, does not apply to you if you're studying, if you're traveling for work or traveling for whatever, research or something. As long as it's work related, you get your visa faster, there are less restrictions. You can do basically, anything in the UK, anything that is legal, if you're on that visa. So, I spent time Googling and researching. So if I made my research before that time, I'd have been able to do some things that I wanted to do faster and easier for me. So visa rules are more complicated than you think, guys. It's like, there are several options. There's so many options. We talked about the high individual potential visa, where if you graduated from a prestigious university, you can just come to the UK without sponsorship, without any restriction for 2 years. That was up to 2 years to switch from this visa and do whatever you want. It's like a mini global talent visa. So there are several options. It's like walking to an ice cream shop and trying to decide which flavor you want. So do your research, check what works for you, what your priorities are, and apply, because visa application fees are also very expensive. I have spent at least 7,000, 8,000 pounds in 2 years on different visa applications. So, you have to apply for something. You're spending the money. You have to be sure that is something that will give you what you want and position yourself, give yourself the very best position to succeed here in the UK. So that's number one. A helpful tip about visa applications is to always please check the government website, because it's not just the fact that visa or the visa rules are more complicated is that visa rules also change in the twinkling of an eye. I mean, for the past couple of weeks, there've been, huge buzz about the immigration white paper, which again are policies that are being proposed, right, by the government. These policies are not law yet. So if you are on the verge of qualifying for ILR in 5 years, for example, you can just go right ahead and do your application and you're fine. Until these changes are implemented, which ones will be implemented, we actually do not know. But if you check in the last 7, 10, 5, 2 years, the visa, immigration status, immigration level, immigration policies have just been changing. They change just like the British weather. Today is sunny, all bright, everybody's going to the park and having fun and, getting ice cream. And the next minute is raining hail and it's snowing and it's cold and breezy and you have to just run to your house. So that's one of the things you can do. You can sign up for alerts on the government system, on the UK government website as well. So you get alerts, email alerts when there are changes or updates to policies and things like that. So you just keep yourself updated and know what's up. Now, the second thing, right? This one is very, very simple, but a lot of people, or me, did know about when I came to the UK is NI registration, National Insurance Registration. You can apply for national insurance, for your national insurance when you come to the UK on this website. So immediately you come in, you need your NI number for everything. You need it for renting a house, you need it to get a job, you need it to open a bank account, you need it for every single thing. So, and it takes a couple of weeks for you to get it. So the earlier you apply for it, the better. So I took some time to apply for mine and it just caused unnecessary delays. Even when I got a job, I started later than I would have wanted to, just because I wasn't prepared and didn't read enough to understand and know the things that I needed. It's very simple, it's very easy, but definitely very easy to forget. The second thing is to register with a GP. So some people come into the country, see, the truth is nobody wants to be unhealthy, nobody wants to fall sick, but you cannot predict. My first month in the UK, I got a chest infection because my body was not used to the cold, here, the heating was on 247. We spent so much money the first year I was here on heating because the heating was on 247. I'll cover myself with layers. But I came in spring, and it was just so cold, and I got a chest infection and pneumonia. So it took me time as well to register for a GP and just get all of that sorted. So I ended up just staying at home and taking ginger and honey while I was waiting while I was waiting to register with the GP. And this is something that you can just simply or easily do by going to this website, especially if you're coming with family. So if you come to the UK, just have a list. This is what I advise people now. Have a list of the things you need to do immediately you arrive in the UK. So you're landing at the airport, you're getting to your Airbnb or to your flat or to wherever you're staying. As you go in that night and you sleep, the next day morning you wake up, or even that night in question, just go to this website and start ticking all of these things off your list. Okay, I want to talk about this again, even though I mentioned it briefly in the first few minutes of this video. Visa rules or immigration rules change like the British weather, guys. You cannot sleep on this. So you think you know the rules, you think you know what's going to happen, you think you know what to do. So a couple of years ago, everybody was coming in as students and having to go back. There was no post-study visa. Then a few years later, they brought the post-study visa and everybody was happy about the post-study visa. And then the care worker visa came up and everybody was happy. Then care workers couldn't come with dependents. That changed. And then the British government said in England, if you're in England, they can't recruit care workers from overseas. And now they are proposing to cut off the care worker visa entirely. So that's for the entirety of the UK now. There's no care worker visa, right? And before now, if you work for 5 years and you have no offenses and you've been paying into the UK system, you pay NI, pay tax and all of that, and just keeping your head down and living your life, right? After 5 years, you can get independent leave to remain if you can afford it. but now the government is proposing to increase this to like 10 years. But I hope it doesn't, especially for those that are already here in the UK who has spent a lot of money with the expectation that in 5 years there'll be some relaxation. Getting ILR as well can be very expensive. It can cost 20, 30, 35, 40,000 for large families to get ILR in the UK. So yeah, it changes. So you have to just keep yourself updated. You have to be sure. Documentation here is very, very important. This is the next thing, right? The next thing I wish I knew early is that the UK values documentation. They value documentation beyond everything. So you see those letters that you get, those tax letters, for example, that you get in the UK every 2 minutes, you're getting about tax changes, or you applied for something and you get all these letters that you feel are not important. Please, they are very, very important. The times you go to the hospital, for example, that you have to get treated by the NHS, if you can't keep those dates, very important. Documentation is very important, because tomorrow, applying for one of the visas that I applied for recently, part of the question I was asked was the last time I accessed NHS services, when and where and for what reason, So I had to think, because I didn't write it down. I didn't know, so I had to think and go back and look at my calendar, and thankfully it was in my calendar. The appointments were in my calendar, so I could go and trace. But documentation can't be that serious. You need dates, you need to know where you see those letters, the physical letters you get a dedicated folder where you keep everything. Don't throw anything away. In the next couple of years, you might need them. When you get your ILR and your citizenship, you can do away with whatever you want to do away with. But documentation, absolutely important. Even at work, guys, documentation is also important. It can save you a lot of headache. It can just be your saving grace in the UK. For those that are working, especially in the corporate world or even in healthcare, they will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Document everything as much as you can. Over document, even document on your end and document on the end of your job as well, to keep yourself safe and to just make sure everything goes really cool, really well for you. So yeah, that's the last one. So guys, there are 4 common mistakes that you can avoid, or you should avoid, if you're in the UK. The first mistake is missing document deadlines. So this one is I'm laughing because where in some of the countries that we come from, things are not rules are not as stringent as they are here. So sometimes, right, some deadlines can be suggestions instead of deadlines. Now, some places can be that strict, but here it is worse. For example, you have to keep the time, guys. So if you're supposed to submit a document or submit an application by 12 midnight today and you submit it by 12:01 tomorrow, you don't make the cutoff mark. So if your documents, for example, for visa or for whatever you're applying for, any application you're making, or even, for tenancy, for a house, for a car, something is incomplete, you would just have to redo, or if it's visa, or get your application thrown out or denied, and they will just tell you the reasons, because this and this and this and this document was not added. If you're applying to join some membership or to get some membership in some organizations, like for people that are in engineering, for example, I happen to know about this one, and your documentation or your documents are not complete, you can get rejected. Make sure that your documents are complete. If you are applying for a visa, for example, it's not a bad idea for you to seek out an immigration advisor to go through your documents and just make sure everything is intact, or somebody that has done the same application as you. If you know you're not a meticulous person, if you're a meticulous person, please follow every single thing down to the T. Don't think that some are suggestions, or you just tell them, I forgot, I didn't see this, or I'm so sorry. It doesn't fly, guys. So yeah, very, very important. The second one is incomplete or incorrect paperwork. This one can even actually put you in trouble. So if your paperwork is incorrect, for example, you're registering for the GP and you put the wrong birthday, for example, that can have massive consequences for you, because you just not be well identified in the system, especially if you have conflicting paperwork or conflicting names, for example. So for me, I came in with my maiden name and I needed to change to my husband's name. And because I had two names, it took me a whole lot to reconcile. And I don't even think it's completely reconciled in some systems. Till today, I'm still having that, addressed. I will go somewhere and they'll say, "Oh, which one are you?" And I have to say, this, I changed this year, I'll provide documentation. I changed the name here, I'll provide documentation. I've just been doing that. And for some places or for some organizations it's easy, for some other organizations it's not. My email address at work, for example, is different from my name if you search it in the system, just because because of the two names. So incorrect paperwork can have massive consequences for you, and especially if you have a family, this is even more so important. Don't submit outdated bank information or unsupported evidence. Very important. Make sure that any information you're submitting is recent, right? If you're applying for something and something that is needed, make sure it's not outdated, make sure it's in date, because they will check. If you follow the rules, part of what I've discovered here is it can seem as easy as ABC. You can do your visa applications yourself, you can do all these applications yourself if you're a meticulous person, and if you read and follow, make sure if they list the documents and go through them one by one and ticking off the ones that you have and labeling them and putting them in a packet, things like that. So if you're going for interviews as well, there's some interviews you go for and you'll be told, come with your high school or your school degree or the transcript or whatever, come with your NI, come with if you're working in the health sector, for example, if PVG, something like PVG is appropriate, come with this, come with that. If you go with all those things, it helps, because sometimes before the interview starts, they would ask you to present your documents, and if you don't have the documents, some of them can waive it off. But for some people can just be put off, because to them it's a sign that you cannot even read out from the instructions. So that is very important. Then the very last thing I want to say before I go is that coming into the UK, part of what you need to have is a plan B and a plan C and a plan D. Just like I said, things change like the weather. Every second, every minute, things are changing, and you cannot afford to be caught off guard. So if you have a job, for example, you finish from school and you're supposed to get a job to sponsor you, and the job is taking too long, and you have 6 months to go on your visa and your post-study visa before switching to another visa, please have a plan B and a plan C. Start applying to other jobs, even though you know that you're waiting. I have heard too many stories. I've seen too many persons who were stranded because they got jobs after graduating, postgraduate jobs that promised to sponsor them, for a skilled worker visa. And at that time, the threshold had not even been increased the way it's been increased now. And, they just got almost to the end, maybe with a month to go, 2 months to go, and then the company finally opened up or first off to say, "Oh, we're so sorry, we don't have the budget." There will always be different reasons why they would at the end of the day not sponsor you. So if you don't have a plan B, a plan C, you would be stranded, and you would just find yourself, your dream of coming to of settling in the UK, you don't find it cut short. So that's all I have to say today. Thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. If you've not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, like, share, comment. Let us know the things that we missed in this video and things that you yourself wish you knew before relocating, or things that you're curious about wanting to relocate. Thank you very much. See you next time. Bye bye.